good day guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today we'll be talking about the introduction to Python programming. Okay, so we'll be looking at what Python programming is and how you can actually code in Python. Python is one of the most popular programming language that you can actually use. It's seamlessly easy to use, and it's also very sweet to code in Python. So what is Python programming? Python is a general purpose interpreted and object-oriented programming language. Okay, so one thing is that Python is a general purpose language, meaning that you can actually use it for in multiple dimensions. You can use Python in game development, web, AI, embedded system, and the rest. So you can use Python in so many ways. There are various reasons why people do learn Python. One, it is open source. Python has one of the largest community out there that whenever you have an issue, you always see who to run to or how to get help out there because it has a very large community and it's open source. Python is easy to learn. Python is one of the easiest programming language you can actually learn. So Python is very versatile and it has powerful libraries for AI and machine learning. Okay, there are various advantages of Python. One, Python is an interpreted language. Python is an interpreted language because the Python code executes line by line. So it is not a compiled language that the whole code get to be compiled before it is being executed. No, it is executing line by line. So probably if you have a syntax error somewhere in your code, it will not prevent the code from actually running at the first time. But if it is a compiled language, all the syntax error must be corrected before the code will run. Python is interactive, is a very interactive program. It is object-oriented. Object-oriented is one of the major tools for developing scalable and maintainable codes. Python is a beginner's language. So if you are a beginner to programming, Python is for you. You can easily learn Python. Okay, there are various careers in Python. There are various things you can actually do with Python. Like I mentioned earlier, you can go into game development, web design, Python, software development, full stack development, software engineer. You can also use Python in machine learning, data science, data analysis, and data engineer, even in DevOps engineer. You can always use Python in all these places. So Python is a very dynamic and sweet language. You will enjoy this process of learning Python programming with us. So there are various characteristics of Python. Like we mentioned earlier, it's a structured and functional programming as well as object-oriented. It can be used as a scripting language. It provides high-level dynamic data and support dynamic type checking. It supports automatic gap collection, and it can easily be integrated with other languages like the C, C++, and Java. So these are some of the characteristics of Python. So um, we already have a video where we talked about setting up the IDs you can use on Python. You can do that for your PC, setting up the Anaconda and using the Spider ID, and you can do that on your smartphone using the Python programming interpreter. So I will link the video to this tutorial on this video so you can actually download and set up if you've not done that, but I believe we've done that by now. Then we're going to go into writing your first code. So to write your first code in Python, it's seamlessly easy, just about writing, print, and then in bracket to have all this work. So we are going to hop over our IDE and then let's see how this works, and we'll be able to explain um, how to write your first code in Python. So I have this my spider. I've already opened the spider, and this is the environment where you type your code. This is the console, okay, whereby after typing and you run your code and it's executing, you'll be able to pick it here, and then this is your play button so that you can actually run your code and the rest. Okay, so we're going to write a simple Python code here. So if we have a simple code, let's say print, so, and let's say I am coding Python. Let me run this now. So you see the results here. It says I am coding Python. This is what I just sent inside here. So now let's look at this. What actually happened? How did this code get executed? Let's actually look at it. So this print now is a function. The major work of this function is to print on the console whatever we have here. Okay, whatever it finds inside this bracket is going to print it on the console. Now for us to send what it will print on the console, we are going to put it in a quotation mark. Okay, if I remove this quotation mark, it's going to return an error. If I remove this quotation mark, it's going to return an error. If you look at here, it's already returning an error saying invalid syntax. We can still run it and then we'll look at it. So it's a invalid syntax. So we must put this quotation mark. So one thing that this quotation mark does is it's telling us that, it's telling the interpreter that, oh, this is a string. Treat it as a string. We will still get to string where we understand all we need to understand about string, but it's telling the interpreter, oh, this is a string, treat it as a string. Okay, so I can print on the next line. I'll say print Python is sweet. All right, I say print Python is sweet, and I can execute this. You say I am coding Python, and it says Python is sweet. So now what happens here? Each print statement starts printing on the next line. Okay, you just need to understand that the next print statement will print on the next line. Okay, so it will not print on this line but on the next line. So that is just how Python programming works. So, and the code is executed line by line. It must execute this before it executes this, and before it executes the next one. I can add another print statement here. I say print. Yeah, it is getting interesting. It is getting interesting, and I can compile, and you see we have the 3 lines printed here. So this is how your simple Python code can be executed and how it works. So this double quote here, I can change it to single quote and it will still work. Okay, I can change it to single quotes. I can change to single quotes and it will still work. And if I execute it, it will still be executed. So it sees string, whether it's in a single quote or in a double quote, it treats it as a string. But one thing you will not do is starting it with a single quote and trying to end it with a double quote. It's going to return an error. As we can see, it's already marking an error here. Okay, unterminated string literals. So, and I cannot start with a double quote and then want to end it with a single quote. It will still return the same error. So if it must be uniform. If you are starting with double quotes, you're ending with double quotes. If you are starting with single quotes, you are ending with single quotes. Okay, so that is how you'll be able to send a string and print it on the console. I believe all I explained there is pretty clear. Now we're going to go into what is a variable. Okay, so a variable. So variables are like a container, okay, for you to store something. Let's say like what we have been doing here, we've been just been sending numbers and they've been printing. We'll just be sending letters. Okay, now what if you want to put a number, you want to store a number and then probably work on it later? So you need to create a memory location where you store what you are going to work on. As we know that the RAM is the space where the processor processes data. So we need to create a location on the RAM. That is where we are going to work. So creating this location is called creating a variable. Now that variable creates kind of a box. And then each box must have a name. And the name is identifier. Okay, each box must have a name and the name is identifier. So each variable you create must have an identifier, unique name for each location you created or for each variable you created. So let's go back to our ID and see how we can actually create a variable. So maybe say I want to create a variable to hold a number. So I can call the variable, let's say number, and I'll say it's equals to 30. So what happened here? I have created a container that is holding the number 30 for me. Okay, so this number 30 is inside this. So anytime I want to address whatever that is inside this container, I'm going to call this the name of this variable, which is number. So anytime I want to make reference to what I have stored here, I will call the name, which is the identifier of this variable, which is number. So if I actually want to print this 30 on the console, what I'm going to do here is I will say print, and I will send the name of the variable number. Now, I want you to understand what actually happens there. At this particular place, I'm not going to put quotation mark. Let's say I have the quotation mark actually. Okay, I have quotation mark here and I say number. This number is the name of this variable actually. So let's run this code. Let's see what happens. You see, it writes the string number. Well, this is not what I want. I want it to pick this value that I have stored inside this variable for me. So to pick this value, I'll have to remove this quotation mark. And when I have only this number here, it is now making reference to the name of this. So if I run it now, and it's going to print the content of this variable, which is 30. Okay. Now to show you that Python executes code line by line, I can update the content of this variable. I can update the content of this variable. So updating it, I can say number is equals to, I want it to now hold 20. Now let's run our code and see what happens here. You see what I now have here is 20. Why? Initially we've inserted 30 inside this container, and here we are changing it. Remember, the code is executed line by line, and this was the last line that was executed before the print. So this 20 was being changed. Okay, the 30 was changed to 20. That's why we'll be able to see 20 here. So this is creating a variable and then storing a data inside that variable. So now there are different type of variables, or we can call it data type. So we'll be looking at data type in the next video. But here now, Python uses its hands to select the type of data that each variable will store. We'll look more detailed inside this in the next video. Okay, so the last thing we need to look at here today now is the naming rule for any identifier. You cannot just type any name for your identifier. Okay, that is, you cannot type any identifier for it to be the name of your variable. No, there is rule. So these are the rule. One, the identifier must start, or the name must start with letters A to Z in small letter, A to Z in capital letter, or it might start with an underscore. It can start with any of this. It cannot start with the dollar sign. It cannot start with the hash sign. It cannot start with the @ sign. It cannot start with the percentage sign. It cannot start with the and sign, as the case may be. It cannot start with any of those special characters. So subsequent characters can include numbers or names or letters. You cannot include both dollar sign, the @ sign, the percentage sign, the raised power sign. No, none of them can actually be included while you're naming a variable. And a variable name is case sensitive. It is case sensitive that if you write my var, it is very different from this my var here, because it is case sensitive. Okay, yeah, so you have to consider the cases. Then Python reserved words cannot be used. There are reserved words we've seen, like print, that used to print something on the console. We'll see if, while, true, false, a whole lot of them. Those reserved words can actually not be used to name a variable. So these are the rules for naming a variable. So with these rules, you can actually name as multiple variables as you can. So I'm going to show us how you can easily create a variable and name it how you want. Now, I do advise, if you're actually writing your code and you're naming your variables, make sure you use names related to what you are doing, so that once you want to reference them, it will be seamlessly easy for you. Okay, like for instance, I want to write my first name. I want to write first name. I'm collecting data, and one of those data is first name. You have last name, you have reg number. Okay, so if you are collecting data and you need first name, you can easily say first name. All right, so now I want you to take a look at what I did here. I can say first name is equals to, let me put the first name, Felix. All right, now I want you to see what I did here now. I wrote first, and when I want to write the next word, the first letter starts in capital letter. This makes it easier for me to be able to read the word because this capital letter will be very obvious to me, and it will be easier for me to read this word as first name. If I write it this way, it will be very difficult for me to actually decode that what I'm writing here is first name. So it will be very hard for me to decode that what I'm writing here is first name. So, but if I have it this way, first name, it is very easy for me to know, okay, this is first name. So I can have first name like this, but I need to put an underscore here. Kind of, it serves like a space. So if I'm looking at this, I know I'm seeing first name. It is more clear to me. So you can use either, you can use it this way, or you can use it this way. Both are accepted. But whichever you use, remember to reference the name while coding. So I prefer using it this way, first name. So my first name is Felix. I can pick the last name. Last name equals to Ibeamaka, and I can say reg number. Reg number is equals to, let me say, FDT slash 24 slash 47. Okay, I can say age, and I'll say that age is equals to 20. All right, so with this now I already have some variables. So let's now say that I want to add these variables into and make a complete sentence. Let's say I want to make a sentence like this. Okay, I want to make a sentence like this. So I'm going to be adding a comment. I will explain what a comment is in a nutshell, but I'll use it to make my statement. Now I want to say my name is Felix Ibeamaka. My reg number is, or let's say in the next line, I'll say my reg number is, so I'll say my reg number is, I type in the reg number. I can now say I am 20 years old. All right, so this is what I actually want to print on the console. So to do this, remember what I have here is 3 lines, so I'm going to be making use of 3 print statements. Okay, so let's, oh, so the first line I'll have print. Okay, so I'll need to say my name is. So now to send my name, I have to put comma here, and I'll have to send what I have in the first name. Okay, so I will now say first name, comma, last name. Now I want you to understand what happens here. Okay, so I want to say that my name is Felix Ibeamaka. Okay, and I am printing the first name first or the second name instead of writing down my name, because probably when I inserted values inside this variable, I don't know what they have. Okay, so what I will now say is my name is, you put comma, and you'll be able to pass all these other values to it. So the print statement can actually take more than one variable. Okay, it can take more than one variable, which is what we are doing here. We are passing more than one variable to it. So I will say my name is, We now pass the first variable Felix, pass the second one, first variable first name, and second variable last name. So let's run this and see what happens. So you see, it says my name is Felix Ibeamaka. So it's passing the two things I have inside these two variables. So I can change them. So let me say I have a ma here. Okay. So what you will now be seeing is a ma Ibeamaka. Okay. So this is printing whatever I have inside this variable. So the next print statement will be my reg number is. So I will now have my reg number is, and I'll add the reg number, and I'll add the reg number. And the last one will be print I am, or say I am, comma, I send the age, comma, and then the last one is, it's going to say I am 20 years old. So I will still have to send years old here. All right, so I'm already done with what I'm doing. So let me print this, and you see what we have here. My name is Felix. My reg number is I am 20 years old. So this is how you can actually print a variable after sending a particular data into it, and then print it out on the console. So before we end today's class, let's look at what a comment is. Okay, so if there are some lines of code that you actually don't want to interpreter to execute, like for instance, in this line, I can actually want to explain what happens there. I can say, I am printing on the console. All right, so you already seen an error, okay, saying invalid syntax. And if I run this, you'll be seeing it that there's an invalid syntax here. All right, so there's an invalid syntax here because I am adding some other words. So this is just an explanation of what this line of code is doing. So I can actually add a comment to make the interpreter not to execute this. So to add a comment, just put the # in Python. So other things that comes after this # is regarded as a comment. So everything that comes after this in that same line is regarded as a comment, and it will not be executed by the interpreter. So if I run this now, I see that it's not executed, and I still have it here. So I can explain all this number of lines here. So I can explain this. I can say that what I'm doing here is creating a variable. So down here, I will say that updating the value of the variable, and the next one I will say that I am printing the variable. I'm printing the variable. So I've actually succeeded in explaining each of this line one after the other. So explaining your lines of code is very important, so that maybe when you come next time, you'll be able to understand what you actually did there. So that's the essence of doing what? Explaining each of the lines of code. So, but you can easily do this with the comment, adding comment to each of the lines, and you'll be able to do what? To explain these lines of code. So with this, I believe we'll be able to understand how the Python code executes. So I just want to give us one trick, okay? For you to actually understand that Python is interpreted and how, when we say that it is interpreted, works. So we'll have like, from here, we'll have 1, 2, 3 lines of code. Let me add an error in this line here. There's an error in this line. Let's see what happens. Let me run this code. Okay, so you see that the first line has been executed. I am coding Python, which is this. There was no error. The second line, Python is sweet, was executed. But it came at the third line and then had an error. Name not defined. So it doesn't understand anything like print, but print. Okay, but if it is a compiled language, none of these lines will be executed as long as there's an error somewhere. So I just remember this and I said I will chip it in. So thank you very much for watching the video. If you have any question, please direct it to the comment section and we'll attend to you. If you like the video, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to my YouTube channel. See you in the next class. We'll have a whole lot to learn about Python programming.